Part 1. The ice beneath our feet. Sky in Yakutia during January doesn't turn blue. It shifts between shades of white and steel. A frozen dome where the sun hangs like a dim lantern behind layers of frost. That morning, we stepped onto the frozen river with the confidence of people who had done it 100 times. The Lena River in winter feels like solid ground. The ice is thicker than a man is tall, but we all know the same truth. Ice doesn't forgive mistakes. Our sled groaned under the weight of supplies, sacks of frozen fish, a crate of dry firewood, and a bundle of reindeer hides. The dogs were restless, their breaths rising in white clouds, paws scratching impatiently at the snow. We had to cross the river to reach the winter hunting camp before nightfall in Yakutia. Night doesn't just mean darkness, it means temperatures dropping from -55 Celsius to -71 C in hours. Out there, the cold doesn't just bite, it crushes. Halfway across, the sound changed. You can hear it if you've been on ice long enough. A low, echoing crack that rolls through your boots. It's not loud, but it goes straight into your bones. I stopped, raised my hand. The dogs froze. The others behind me fell silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Then it came again, longer this time, like the deep groan of some ancient creature waking beneath our feet. We were standing over a section where the ice was thinner than we thought. Maybe the current underneath had shifted, or warm spring water had eaten away at it. Either way, it was bad. The weight of the sled, the dogs, and for people was more than this patch of ice liked. Back, I hissed, waving them toward the bank. The first step back was fine. The second brought a sharp, splintering sound. On the third, the ice directly under the sled cracked in a jagged starburst. The sled dropped an inch. The dogs barked wildly, straining in their harnesses. The ice moaned again, louder, and I knew we weren't going to make it back in time. Then came the sound every Yakut dreads, a clean, sharp snap followed by a hollow splash. One of the sled's runners had punched through. Water, black as oil, bubbled up, steaming in the frigid air. The dogs tried to leap forward, but the harness kept them tethered to the sinking sled. We moved fast. We unhooked the front pair, letting them scramble to safety, but the sled was lodged now, one half floating in icy water, the other still on the ice. If we pushed too hard, the rest would go, and if we didn't move fast enough, the water would start freezing around it, trapping everything in place. The air was deadly still. My eyelashes were already frozen together, each blink breaking tiny shards of ice. The skin on my face burned like fire from the cold. I could feel the weight of the river below us, moving, alive, dangerous. Somewhere under that black ice was a current strong enough to drag a man under and keep him there until spring. We set to work. First, we cut the cargo straps, tossing bundles of firewood onto the ice away from the crack. The heavier sacks of fish we slid as far as we could, watching the ice sag slightly under each load. The dogs whined, pacing at the edges, ears pinned back against the wind that had started up again. Frost swirled across the ice like fine smoke. The hole where the sled had broken through was already beginning to rim with new ice, thin and sharp as glass, but the water beneath still moved, and with every groan of the ice sheet, I felt the ground shift under me. We were still 100 meters from the nearest snowbank that could hide us from the wind. 100 meters in this cold might as well be a kilometer if you're carrying supplies. My fingers were already numb despite the fur mittens. Somewhere behind me, Pavel cursed under his breath, the kind of curse you say when you're too cold to shout. The plan was simple: lighten the load, pull the sled forward onto solid ice, and get moving before the cold or the river decided. Otherwise, simple plans, though, have a way of becoming impossible out here. Because when we gave that first pull, the ice ahead of us cracked too. Part 2. The river tightens its grip. The crack ahead of us wasn't wide yet, just a hairline fracture, but in this kind of cold, the sound alone could drain the strength from your legs. It meant the ice was shifting under pressure, maybe from a current surge or the weight of snow in some other part of the river. Either way, we had seconds, not minutes. Pavel dropped to his knees and started kicking snow over the new crack, trying to hide it from the dogs so they wouldn't panic. "We need to angle to the right," he shouted, voice muffled by the scarf ice to his beard. The right meant a longer route, but the bank sloped more gently there. Less chance of breaking through. The dogs were jittery, muscles quivering. Under their thick fur, their paws stamping small circles into the snow, they could sense the danger. Animals always do, but they were also ready to bolt. That's the thing about working with dogs out here, in a fight between instinct and training. Instinct usually wins. We heaved on the sled, each pull sending a deep vibration through the ice. The runners scraped against frozen slush, and for a moment, it felt like we were making progress. Then, with a gut-wrenching lurch, the back end dipped and icy water surged up, spilling across the ice in a thin, creeping layer that began freezing the instant it touched the air. "Drop it," I yelled. We let go of the sled and stumbled back, boots sliding on the slick surface. The water spread in delicate fingers, crackling as it froze, sealing the sled half in, half out of the river's grip. The Lena had decided to keep it. Losing the sled meant losing half our supplies and the hides we'd need to survive the nights ahead. But staying meant risking a full breakthrough. We couldn't carry everything by hand, not in this cold, not over this distance. My chest felt tight, not just from the air slicing into my lungs, but from the knowledge that every decision now was life or death. Pavel was already cutting the sled's main lashings with his knife, the blade barely biting into the frozen rope. We worked in silence, except for the ragged breaths and the sharp, rhythmic scrape of the knife. The goal now was salvage, take what we could carry, abandon the rest, and pray we reach the far bank before the wind rose any higher. Than the wind did rise. It came like a wall, sweeping across the open river with the force of a moving train. Snow and ice shards blasted our faces, turning the world into a blinding blur. I couldn't see the dogs, though I could hear them whining. The sound was faint, swallowed by the storm. We crouched low, shielding our faces, waiting for the gust to pass. It didn't. It just kept hammering, as if the sky itself had turned against us. In -71 wind, skin freezes in less than 2 minutes. I pulled my fur hood tight, the frost crunching where my breath had already frozen the first stiff. Through the whiteout, I made out Pavel's shape hunched, dragging to sacks of fish strapped to his shoulders. I grabbed the bundle of hides and felt their weight pull me forward. Without the sled, every step was a battle, the ice slick beneath my boots, the wind pushing against me like a solid wall. We moved in short bursts between the small snow hummocks, each one a tiny break from the wind. The dogs stayed close now, heads low, their usual energy dampened by the cold. Somewhere behind us, the sled groaned once more, a lonely sound before the ice swallowed it whole with a muffled splash. We didn't speak. Out here, words feel wasted. The only sound was the crunch of snow underfoot and the low whistle of the wind, finding every gap in our clothing. My hands were numb. My toes were starting to lose sensation, a warning I couldn't ignore. The far bank was still a shadow in the storm. Between us and safety lay more ice, and the knowledge that the river had already claimed its first prize. Part 3. The storm's center, half the river behind us, half still ahead. That's where the real danger hides when you're too far to turn back, but still too far to reach land. The wind had stripped all contrast from the world. Sky and ice were the same color now, a dead, endless white. You had to trust your memory of where the far bank should be, because your eyes couldn't tell anymore. Every few steps, a groan rumbled underfoot, deep in the ice, like something massive shifting in the dark below us. Pavel stumbled. I caught his arm, but his bundle of fish slid across the ice, spilling open. Silvery bodies skittered into the wind, freezing solid in seconds. He cursed under his breath, the kind of curse that isn't about anger, but about knowing the balance has just tipped a little further toward death. The dogs pulled ahead, sniffing for cracks, their paws making a low creak on each step. We kept to their path. Animals know where the ice can hold. My own breath sounded strange in my ears, thick and slow. It took effort to pull air in, like breathing through wet cloth. At one point, I thought I saw movement ahead, a black shape low to the ice. My mind whispered seal, but that was impossible. Seals don't come this far upriver in this season. The shape lifted and was gone in the wind. Maybe it was just driftwood trapped in the ice, or maybe it was the cold playing tricks. In -71°C, your mind starts to imagine warmth, food, or danger, anything to keep itself awake. We stopped in the partial shelter of an ice ridge, only waist-high but enough to block the wind's teeth. For a minute, Pavel's eyelashes were white, frozen solid. When he blinked, they clinked together faintly, ice on ice. He didn't say anything, but his hand went to his side. Frostbite check, still feeling his fingers. That was good. Then came the sound I'd been dreading, a sharp, clean crack, close. Not the long moan of distant shifting ice, but the snarl of a break right under our boots. The ridge we were hiding behind had a thin patch at its base, invisible under. Snow. The dogs froze, tails stiff. One whined. Pavel's eyes met mine. No words needed. We moved instantly, side by side, spreading our weight. I could hear water moving just beneath the surface, a muffled, living sound. Like breath under glass. We crawled the last 10 meters, dragging the hides and the fish sacks. The ice flexed under my knee, a slow give, like stepping on an old wooden floor. I didn't dare look down. The river doesn't care if you look. It cares how long you stay. When we finally reached thicker ice, I realized my gloves were soaked from the snow. The wet began freezing instantly, turning the fabric into a stiff shell. My fingers inside still felt warm. For now, that's the trap of frostbite. It's painless until it's too late. The far bank came into sight through a sudden break in the storm. Just a gray smudge of land under low clouds. But that glimpse was enough to pull us forward. The Lena wasn't finished yet, but we had one advantage left. We were still moving. And out here, in this cold, moving is the only thing that means you're still alive. Part 4. The last crossing. We're close enough now to see the black ribs of larch trees clawing at the horizon. The far bank was real, not a mirage, but between us and it was the Lena's last defense, a chaos of broken ice blocks and jagged snow ridges where the current below kept the freeze thin and restless. The storm had shifted, pressing the wind against our backs. It should have helped, but it only drove fine snow into our collars, burning the skin at the base of our necks. The dogs hesitated, noses low, weaving like they were threading a needle. They knew there was a wrong step. Here that could end everything. Pavel went first, planting his pole deep into each drift before stepping. Twice, the pole punched through into dark water, but the hole closed instantly with a brittle crackle, like sugar icing hardening. We skirted those spots in silence. Halfway through, the ice started moving. Not much, just a slow, deep shift, like the river was stretching under us. The sound was low enough to feel in the ribs rather than hear. I could picture the black water beneath, impatient for one of us to make a mistake. Then the lead dog lunged forward, barking sharply. The bank was there, only 20 meters away, but in front of it, a strip of open water snaked between us and safety, maybe 2 meters wide, but churning, steaming faintly in the cold. That was the river's final trap. Pavel didn't hesitate. He dropped to his knees, cutting the rope from one of the fish bundles. In seconds, we'd lashed the hides together, stiff and slick, and shoved them across the gap. The dogs went first, claws scrabbling, sliding onto the other side. Then Pavel. He crouched, pushed hard with his pole, and was over. I went last. The hides tilted under me, the water hissing where chunks of ice broke loose. For a moment, my boot slipped into the edge. The cold shot up my leg like a blade. But then Pavel's hand was on my arm, hauling me forward, and we were on the bank. We didn't stop to celebrate. Out here, the wind will take your victory if you stand still too long. We pushed into the trees, using their cover to block the gale. Only then did I look back at the Lena. Through the blowing snow, it looked exactly as it had when we stepped onto it, flat, white, still. But we knew better. In 71°C, the river isn't just water and ice. It's a living thing, ancient and patient, waiting for the moment your strength falters. Today, we'd crossed it. Tomorrow, it might claim someone else. Pavel handed me a strip of frozen fish, and we chewed in silence. The dogs curled at our feet. The wind roared overhead. But here, under the trees, it was only a whisper. For now, we had won.